Hey makeup friends. So recently I posted on my community tab that I was having a bit of a creative block, and I asked you what kind of content you're interested in seeing. The most liked suggestion on that post was asking for what my go-to work palettes are. So I've got you covered. I've got 10 palettes here that are largely neutral but do have a little bit of a fun twist in each of them. So let's get into this. As always, I want to start off by welcoming you back to my channel, or if you are new here, then hello and welcome. My name is Kara, and on my channel, we like to mix beauty, brains, and the occasional F-bomb. Now, really quickly, I'm going to talk about the eye makeup that I'm wearing today. It is one of the palettes that I wanted to share with you in any event, but I do want to say a big thank you to What's Up Beauty for sending not only the palette to me, but also their entire new collection of beauty products. If you're not familiar, What's Up Beauty is known for their nail polishes. They have a lot of stamping products, nail dip powders, all of that kind of thing. But they've just recently branched into the actual makeup world. So part of that is this palette right here, which is called the Desert Monsoon palette. And not only did I just want to review this palette for you anyways, but it really does fit in with the theme of today's video because I can't stop wearing this to the office. I think it's absolutely beautiful. So the palette retails for $41 US, and there is what she looks like on the inside. Now, what I want to point out is these two shades right here. They look very much on the brown side of things, and yet once they're applied to the eyes and blended out, there is a very strong pink undertone to both of them, which I really like, and I think that it plays out really nicely with not only this matte shade here, but with a lot of the tones of the shimmery shadows that are in there as well. With the two darker mattes that you have going on in there, they blend out so nicely. The pigmentation is most definitely there with these matte shades, and I just really like working with them because I don't have to expend a ton of energy. With the shimmer shadows, I do find that they pick up better on my finger than they do on a brush, but you can still apply them with a brush. So quickly, I'm going to go through the look that I applied today. Now, unfortunately, I didn't use the brushes that came with the set because I'm an idiot, frankly. They're dirty and I just didn't think to clean them before I sat down to film myself applying makeup. So it is what it is. But let's talk about the brushes and then we'll get into the application. These are handmade in Japan and they are made of goat hair. This one in specific, which is the little pencil brush, is the only brush in the set that has goat hair and synthetic hair bristles. All right, I'm going to show you all 6 of them quickly. So this is the R101 brush, and it's just a really nice, precise pencil brush. This is the R102 brush, which is a fluffy crease blending brush. This is the R103 brush, which is a slightly larger blending brush. This is the R104 brush, which is a larger blending brush. This is the R105 brush, which is a tapered blending brush. And then lastly, we have the 106 flat shader brush. Finally, for the nail polishes, we have Desert Rose, Joshua Tree, Tempest, Downpour, Succulent, and that's the nail polish that I'm wearing today. I will say there are some chips, but this is day 3, and that is super impressive to me because my nails usually look like this literally within 24 hours with any other nail polish. And last but not least is the shade Sun. All right, so I did want to share those items with you. If you are sort of on the fence of where you might want to go with them, I highly, highly recommend the brushes. The eyeshadow palette is also fantastic, but these brushes are very impressive and I'm so happy with them. I will have the website linked down below. You can go on there and check out the different bundle options as well as different pricing options that they have. So with that said, let's move into quickly how I achieved this eye look and then we'll finish up with the other palettes that I wanted to talk about. All right, so we're going to go through this fairly quickly. So I am going to speed up the footage so that you can see as much of the application as possible. in as short of a period as I can do. So I started off with the shade Dust Storm and blended that into the transition area of my eye. And then I went in with the shade called Joshua Tree to help build up some dimension there. I kept that a little bit lower down towards the crease, but still blended it up towards the brow bone as well. Then I applied the shade Thunder, which is the deepest shade in this palette. You can see that I kept that towards the outer portion of my eyelid and then also ran it under my lower lash line and connected that up to the upper area. I didn't experience any issues in blending this out, and the pigmentation is most definitely there. Then I picked up the shade Tempest, and I used that to buff out the shade Thunder on my lower lash line. I wanted to bring a bit of color into the look without it becoming the central focus, and I find that running a bit of a colorful shadow under the lower lash line like that does help you to incorporate some color without it being overwhelming or too distracting from the rest of the look. For my lid, I applied the shade Desert Rose, which is that really beautiful pinky gold duochrome shadow. And then I picked up the shade Glow, and I used that not only as an inner corner highlight, but also as a brow bone highlight. And then just to punch up the lid a little bit and bring just a little bit more color into it, I picked up the shade Humidity, and I tapped that on with my finger, and that just added a really nice sparkly element, which I think just helped sort of round out the look. Full disclosure, it's now been the better part of 2 hours since I completed the very first part of this video. I had lunch with my daughter, and then I dealt with some stuff at work, and I'm kind of amped up now, so you might notice a bit of a shift in my attitude. People are wild. That's all I have to say. They are wild. If you're new to my channel, I am a family lawyer by trade, so I deal with nothing but divorce all day, every day. It has its ups, it has its downs, and then it has its truly bizarre, and that is what we're dealing with today. And I'm bemused. I'm a little bit annoyed, but I'm also just so very bemused by this whole situation. I'm not going to get into it because it's ongoing and evolving, and you never know who goes and sees these kind of videos, but just suffice it to say, if you see that I'm a little bit amped up, that's why. Family law. Because family law. Anyways, like I said, we're going to be talking about palettes that incorporate neutral and color, and no, they're not all just going to be neutrals with pops of blue. We do have some of those, but you should know me by now. It's going to be more than just your standard fare. So let's get into it. So one of the most recent ones that I have reviewed is this one here from Lunar Beauty. This is the Life's a Drag Facelift palette. And as you can see, not only does it have an entire half that is all neutral, but it's got the rainbow over here as well. So this is probably, in fact, it is the most bold choice of the palettes that I'm going to talk about today, because you could go full on rainbow and just completely ignore the neutral side, or you can take this out and you've got a completely neutral palette. But what I like about this is that you can create a neutral look and then you can run a colorful shadow under the lower lash line, incorporate it somewhere up into the other blended shadows, and you don't have to go full rainbow. You can just incorporate one color, sort of dip your toe into it, blend it out so it's really soft, but you have plenty to choose from here. But not to be outdone, it's also just a fantastic palette. These shadows are beautiful. The mattes are truly pigmented. This is a predominantly matte palette, so it's a good thing that they're truly pigmented and highly blendable. But then you also have these 3 beautiful shimmers as well. And if you watch some of my videos, you gotta know, I love a good shimmer shadow. I think it just adds so much dimension to the lid. It creates a little bit of visual interest by catching the light, bouncing it back without it being like, here's my eyes. You know, it doesn't have to be a neon color or anything like that to draw attention. And these ones get it done. This one up here is sort of like a topper. You can wear it just on its own, but it's so nice and sheer without like a really strong pigmented base that you could put one of these colorful shadows on your lid, put that on top of it, and it's just going to change the look entirely. So this is a palette that I think is just the most versatile palette in my collection at this point, because you can take it any way you want. I think it's a fantastic investment, and frankly, if you're looking to keep a very minimal and small collection, this is the kind of palette to go for. Something that's a workhorse, high quality, but offers a lot of versatility. So this one gets it done. Now I said they weren't all going to be neutral with pops of blue, but we do have some of those to various degrees. So let's get into it. I think the one that is the most neutral pop of blue kind of palette, well, frankly, there's two of them, but let's start with this one here. This is from Natasha Denona, and this is the gold palette. So, neutral, pop of blue. This one up here arguably is a bit more of like a green. It's sort of a duochrome. It's got that like red, green. You can kind of see the shift there. It's beautiful. Again, it's one of those shadows, excuse me, I'm drinking a giant ass Red Bull. That also accounts for why I'm so like bing. So there are some of the like more interesting colors in this palette. So there's that duochromatic sort of topper shade I was talking about. There's this gorgeous sparkly blue and then a matte teal. And then over here, this is the matte teal with this one padded on top of it. So you can kind of create your own shades as well. And I think it's just really pretty. It goes really nicely with the rest of the palette. Obviously, it's very neutral, so you can mix and match these shades however you see fit, but it's just something different. It's something that's a little bit unexpected up here, and I think it just like, if you keep everything else really neutral, add that little duochromatic shift or even just that blue sparkly there, it's still a very grounded look, but not boring in any sense. You know what I mean? Or you can like run this teal under the lower lash line. You get a little bit of that color, but the rest of it's very neutral. So again, it's one of those looks that is eye-catching, but not, what's the word? Like offensive? Like what is it? A bit unprofessional? Is that what it is? I have issues with this whole idea of like office appropriate and what's professional versus unprofessional, because you can be the most professional person in the world and rock the hell out of a rainbow eye look. It doesn't take away from your expertise in your field or your ability to deliver customer service, or whatever your job is not contingent on what you're wearing or what color you have on your eyes. However, societal norms being what they are, here we are. So I told you I'm in a mood now. It's amazing what just getting one letter will do. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is you can keep this very toned down, very earthy, but still have a little bit of fun with it. Next, as a pop of blue neutral palette, is this one here from Urban Decay. This is the Naked Wild West. I always want to call it Naked Cowboy. I know it's not Naked Cowboy, but yet it should have been. So like Urban Decay, missed opportunity, although that is kind of on brand. Anyways, here we are. What I really like about this palette, first of all, it performs a lot nicer than what some of the other Naked palettes have done in the past. And it's not that sort of ashy, dusty kind of look that some of them produce. Like I had Naked 3 and it's so dull. It is not a pretty palette at all. This one knocked my socks off. I think it's beautiful. And what else I like about it is that it has sort of like these warmer tones, but you can also pull cool tones out of it. And the teal and then this like more shimmery kind of blue, they play to either side. So nothing in here is going to be like a strong contrast against the other. Nothing's going to clash or anything of that sort. But if you like cooler looks, you can get that out of here. If you like warmer looks, you can get that out of here. So I'm just gonna do a couple little finger swatches and just show you what some of these shades look like. So there we have it. So it's kind of reminiscent of the Natasha Denona. The sparkly sort of shimmery shadow is not nearly as sparkly as what you see in the gold palette, but also the price point is significantly lower, so assign value where you will. But these are just really, really pretty shades, and it's an easy palette to work with. I don't think it's my favorite palette out there, but it's certainly my favorite of the Urban Decay palettes that I've tried. So the pigmentation is there, you can see. It swatches beautifully, it blends beautifully. I think in terms of the Naked palettes that I've tried, I've had Naked 3, Naked Cherry, this one. There is another one in there as well, but clearly I've forgotten it. Naked Forgettable, I can't remember which one it was, but at any rate, those ones all left me wanting more. This one, I think they finally nailed the formula of these shadows. I really like it. They're not dusty at all. They're not like super powdery or really difficult to work with. They're beautiful. I like this palette. I just wish it was called Naked Cowboy. That just would have been so much more fun. This one here from Viseart kind of rides the line of neutral with a pop of blue, but it has a couple other little additions in it. So this is the Soleil La Plage palette. I think it's their most recent one. So you can see the little blue shadow sitting there, but you also have this like really pretty coral shade. There's some yellows in here. So I think it's a little bit more well-rounded than the last two palettes that we've looked at because there is more range in it. But this is a beautiful palette. This blue in particular, I can't not include it in a look when I use this palette. I think it's just so pretty. So this is that entire center row swatched out, and they're just like so pretty. I have tried some Viseart palettes in the past where the shimmers have just left me wanting more. And these ones, while not as reflective as they are in some other palettes that I have, they're beautiful. This like minty kind of blue is gorgeous, and it looks like this at the end of the day as well. Like it just, there's no fading, there's no creasing, there's no transferring all over the place. Like they're beautiful. They're so nice and smooth. You can amp them up a little bit with a setting spray, but they don't need it. You don't have to use like a sticky base to keep them in place. Like they're really nice shadows to work with. And again, this is one of those palettes that I can just grab, apply. I know I'm not gonna have to spend a million years trying to blend out the mattes or anything of that sort. I'm not gonna get super frustrated trying to pick up the shimmer shadows on a brush because they pick up beautifully. It's just a really nice palette to work with. And I think it's really, really pretty for summer. It's more subdued and more subtle, and yet, again, not boring. And of course, like with this coral shade, you could just pat that all over the lid and have a really bright look, but then you can ground it with the more neutral mattes around it as well. So I think this is one of those palettes that you can take in a few different directions, and I like that it's a little bit more, like I said, fleshed out than just a neutral with a pop of blue. I like the fun inclusion of the yellows in there. I think it's a really pretty palette. Now, I can't talk about favorite palettes of any sort without including at least one BH Cosmetics palette. So here's this one. This is the BFF palette, and I mean, when I did my ranking of BH palettes, this one came out on top, which kind of surprised me because it is a collab palette, and for whatever reason, I always kind of just do a little bit of a side eye at collab palettes. In the past, have been burned by them because they just haven't been up to the typical standard. This one, beautiful. So again, neutral palette, pops of blue, but also there's a really pretty like baby pink over here. You have more pink tones and reds up here. This one almost pulls a little bit orange on the eyes, and then this one is a bit of like that red blue duochromatic kind of thing. I think it's a beautiful, beautiful palette. I think you could go dramatic and just do like a full blue eye, but you also have a lot of neutral options, so you can just do a very subtle look. Again, you can do a like neutral look with a pop of color if you wanted. You could just throw this on the inner corner for just a tiny little bit of color, and it's still gonna look really interesting and different. I love this palette so, so much. These mattes are beautiful to work with, and again, these shimmers last all day. So moving away from more pops of blue and looking at a palette that has some very core neutrals, and then you can take it in a number of different directions just by deciding what color shimmer you want to put on. You've got this one here from Too Faced. This is the Chocolate Gold palette. It's been around for a very long time, but it is beautiful. So you just have 4 matte shades over here, very standard fare. You've got like a creamy color, 2 different brown options, and then a matte black. And then you have all of these shimmers over here. So you can go bright pink, there's green, there's golds if you wanted to keep everything more neutral. The silver in here is beautiful. These are just such nice shadows. So there's just 4 of those shimmery shadows. But you can see like they're not chunky, and yet like especially that gold and that silver, they really catch the light so nicely. You can blend these more colorful shadows out as well because they do have like a strong base, like a strongly pigmented base. And so it doesn't have to be like all metallic all over the eye. You can blend them out a bit, but they're still just like beautiful shadows. And then like I said, if you want to go more neutral, there's a lot of options in here for that. And I'll just do, I'm not used to doing left-handed swatches, but there's just a few others. So again, with that like dark, what is that color? An antiqued bronze? We'll go with that. Like, you can get a more dramatic look. If you put that all over the lid, blend in that matte black towards the outside, you can get super dramatic and like really smoky, but you can also keep it really light and quote unquote office appropriate as well. So that's what I really love about basically all these palettes that I'm talking about, is that you can get that range of wear out of them. So you don't need to invest in a million different palettes, like one to cover every opportunity. You can just shop smartly and shop conscientiously for the palettes that are going to give you the versatility so that you don't have to buy a ton of them. That's kind of tongue-in-cheek coming from somebody who has like, it's got to be close to 200 palettes. Like, it's ridiculous. Do as I say, not as I do. But if you're looking to be a smart consumer, or if you have limited space for storage and you don't want 200 palettes tying up room, but yet you want to be able to create a whole wealth of different kinds of eye looks, these are the kind of palettes that you can get that done with. But now let's bring it back to basics. Let's bring it back to more like traditionally neutral palettes, but with a little bit of a twist, like I said. So first up, we have the Hindash Beautopsy palette. First of all, this is just a very innovative and very creative palette because it has like these ombre pans. So instead of having 15 or 20 different pans set out, you've got 6, but a whole spectrum of shades within each one. And I did do a fully dedicated review on this. I love this palette. Like, I was very intimidated by it at first. I didn't know that I would have the skill set to be able to create looks with it, but let me tell you, you can use this for like face contour, highlighting, bronzer, blush, and actually using it to create eye looks is a lot easier than it looks as well, because these shadows are not super pigmented. They're very, very buildable and very easily buildable, but they're not like, you're not going to get this red on the first swipe, which is good because when things are like this pigmented, there's nowhere left to go. Like, unless you're going to blend forever or layer like a cream kind of shade on top of it to tone it down, it's just a pain in the ass because then you're just stuck with this color and you can't do anything else with it. And frankly, I mean, while you can layer shades to tone it down or deepen it up or anything like that, sometimes I just don't want to F around with that. Sometimes I just want an easy eye look. This one allows you to do that. So like I said, like, you do get good pigmentation, but it's very sheer when you first apply it. And then you can just keep going in and layering it up. And like I said, it builds beautifully. So this is one of those palettes that I think it's going to turn a lot of people off because of the layout and because of the price point of it. And yet this is one of those palettes that I think would be perfect for beginners. Again, because there's not a lot of like super overwhelming shades in here. You don't have any like sparkly, shimmery things. I happen to love shimmer shadows, but I know some people get a little intimidated by them. Also, I have something itching my face horribly. Good Lord. Okay. But this is the kind of palette that I think beginners would really find easy to use because of that blendability and buildability. It can create very subtle looks, or you can do like full dramatic, like red and black eye looks as well if you wanted to. So this is one of those palettes that I wish everybody could get a chance to play with, because I think if you're new to the eyeshadow world, this is the kind of palette that you would come away with having a good experience with. But like I said, I think a lot of people are going to overlook it, and I frankly almost overlooked it as well, simply because it's so different from what else is on the market. But that's also part of the beauty of it. So at any rate, I love this one. I know it's not going to be for everybody, but for what it's worth, I love it. I actually have 2 BH Cosmetics palettes to talk about. So the second one that I wanted to include in this video is Hangin in Hawaii. Now, I don't know what it is, but on the BH Cosmetics websites, they don't take great photos of their palettes. And a lot of times I look at them and I'm like, you look kind of boring. This one and Chillin' in Chicago both looked super boring to me. And then I got them and I was like, oh, you're lovely. So Hangin in Hawaii, beautiful, beautiful palette. The picture on the website makes it look like it's all going to be like the same shade of like warmish brown. It's so much more than that. So you do have these more warm toned browns, but you also have this like true pink over here and more peachy and corally shades up here. And what made me include it in this video is basically these 3 shades here, because while you can create just a truly neutral eye look using this palette, these ones allow you to play with color in a non-intimidating way. Especially this metallic pink over here. Like, these are just so pretty. But like this one, very subtle, very good for like blending shadows out or using in the transition area. This true pink here, it's not a neon or electric pink. And then this metallic shade is just, it's so pretty. Like, it's beautiful. And so you can just include little elements of that, again, to just get a different spin on neutral without going full on color. Sort of like what I've done today with the pink under my lower lash line. My eye look doesn't scream pink, and yet there is still just a little bit of color there. So this palette, I think, is just a really easy way to incorporate some color without being overwhelmed. Last but not least, for palettes, we have Sashimi City from Kaleidos. This is probably the most neutral of the palettes I'm going to talk about today, and yet these shimmer shadows that are in here, they save this palette from being boring. They are beautiful. Now, the Kaleidos formula in and of itself is one of my favorite shadow formulas. These mattes are so creamy and velvety soft, and again, they blend beautifully. But these shimmers, these are so pretty. So again, you can just apply them on their own on the lid, or you can pat them over top of other shadows just to add a little bit of visual interest, especially this top one here. Like, holy crap, that's gorgeous. So while sometimes I do like a no makeup kind of look where I'll just throw maybe a little bit of bronzer in the crease and a shadow that matches my skin tone on the lid just to deal with the discoloration issues that I have, that's not always the look that I want. Sometimes I want a little bit more than that. And these kind of shadows really help get that done. Again, you can just go in with very subtle kind of shades over here, but then once you include these shimmery shadows, it just takes it to the next level. So this is a palette that I love having because it's just so easy to use, and yet it produces such beautiful eye looks. Now, I have one bonus for you. It's not a palette, it's a single shadow. But say you do have like a purely neutral palette like this Patrick Ta one here. So inside, you're not going to find any color whatsoever. It's just truly a neutral palette. I happen to love this palette, but sometimes you want a little something more. I've got a single shadow that will change your life. That's a strong statement, but you know what? I'm going to stand by it. I think it's an absolutely beautiful single shadow. So this is coming from Adept Cosmetics. It's one of their ACI shades, and it's ACI 15. It is available as a single, and it's not in one of their palettes, so you don't have to buy the full palette. You can just get it on its own. So in the pan, you can already see just how reflective it is. This shade, oh my goodness. So it's kind of got like a spongy texture to it. You can feel like the creaminess in the formula, and it does sort of like press down, but I think this deserves a hold on to your butts. Hold on to your butts. Boom. There she is. And I don't know that my camera is going to do this shade justice, but it is this beautiful multi-chrome pink, gold, orange. Maybe that would be, yeah, that's a multi-chrome. It's more than 2. Good job, Kara. Anyways, it's fucking stunning. It is beautiful. So you can wear that on its own. You can apply it on top of neutral shadows, and it's going to transform the entire look. One shadow changes the entire look of a palette like this one from Patrick Ta. So for example, say, let's see, this not the lightest of the shades, but this one right here. Let's just put that on the back of my hand. Blendy, blendy, blendy. Pick up a little bit more of ACI 15. There's obviously the matte shadow there. Apply this on top, and it's really going to pull out like the orangey kind of shades. It gives it a little bit of a different base color, and really just changes the undertone. So you can see it, obviously, without any shadow underneath it and what it looks like with the shadow on top. This is like truly one of those transformative kind of shades, and I think it's effing stunning. I love it so much. So ACI 15 from Adept Cosmetics. All right, and there you have it, guys. Those are some of my go-to work palettes. I would love to hear from you in the comments what some of your go-to palettes are, and also what kind of environment do you work in? If you are in a corporate structure, are you allowed to wear bright makeup, or does HR like frown on that, or are there dress codes? If you have a uniform at your job, are you allowed to express yourself through makeup? I'm very curious about that because I've been in my industry for so long that I've kind of lost sight of how other industries operate. So I'd love to hear from you down below, but I also want to thank Robin once again for submitting this suggestion. It's very helpful to me when you guys do things like that, and this is a great idea, so thank you very much. And also, one of you lovely subscribers who I don't know if you want to be named or not, so I'm not going to, but thank you so much. The full-sized Bite Upswing mascara. It showed up. I'm so grateful, and thank you so much. It showed up just the other day before my birthday. Perfect timing. Thank you. I really appreciate that so much. At any rate, thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch, and I will see you in my next video. Until then, just be a decent human being. Bye for now.